So much for staying with us. Time now for our discussion this afternoon with Wanja Maina, who is a young woman with disabilities rights advocate. She's also a youth leader, and our discussion today is surrounding the World Disability Day, which was yesterday on the 3rd of December, but it is commemorated throughout the week of 30th November to 4th December, which is today. So we are not late for that discussion. Wanja, good afternoon. Great to see you, and welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Grace, and good afternoon, all viewers of KTN.
Great.
I'm fine, thank you. I'm getting you live and direct. I'm in Dol, Laikipia County.
Great, Wanja. Now, the theme for this year's World Disability Day is building back better toward a disability-inclusive, accessible and sustainable post-COVID-19 world. That last bit of COVID-19, we will discuss it later on, but talk to us first of all about the importance of this day, and also as a person yourself, being a person living with disability, Wanja.
Okay, thank you very much, Grace. First and foremost, just to appreciate that the UN saw it fit to have this day, that of December. It's a very important day in the calendar of human rights. This is because it reminds all of us, or it implores on the world to uphold, to respect, to ensure that the disabled people in their communities live a dignified life. Ideally, every day should be International Disability Day, because the risk that I've noted in this country is that the fact that it's on the 3rd of December, politicians, NGO people sort of do a lot of activities in this week, as you put it, that from November to this date. But for me, I think that this is just a ceremonial day, but every day should be as important to uphold rights of disabled people in our families, in our community, and in our society. As a young woman with a disability, the challenges are very many. This is because when disability and gender, like being a woman, sort of intersect, the challenges become even more. So for us as women with disabilities, we are also saying that we are leaders, we are capable, and we are going to show leadership during this day and each and every other day. So it's important, but I've always said that every day should be International Day for the rights of the disabled people.
Right, and you mentioned the challenges, and let's talk about that. Even the basic of them, things like accessing, say, the CBD or any other city or town in Kenya.
Grace, when you were doing the media interview, I had some parents and some women in Naivasha, and they were talking about their children and so on. My biggest worry is that those women or women like them are not yet on social protection. So the biggest challenge of people with disabilities, and I'm saying this in the context of Corona, is that most of them are in the informal sector. Most of their parents are poor. Disability is equals to poverty, and disability leads to poverty, and poverty leads to disability. So the first challenge is actually social protection. Our government is not doing much, if at all. In fact, it was so disappointing that in the midst of a pandemic, they were actually collecting data of people who should be on social protection. Ideally, they should have that data. For the other challenge that people with disabilities are facing in this country, especially during the Corona time, is actually the issue of sexual and gender-based violence. I think it's timely to discuss this because we are in the middle of 16 days of activism. Personally, as a leader and as a very active citizen, I'm fatigued, I'm sick, I'm tired of all these normalized cases of defilement, rapes, and so on in our communities. So that is the second challenge. That accessibility of built environment. And in fact, the government is leading by example in terms of having inaccessible offices. It is not surprising, for instance, to go to government offices and you'll find a flight of stairs, for instance. So basically, inaccessibility is a short message to say that we are sorry we can't admit you here. Town, for example, I've had the NMS boss saying that they are going to take away the bus stop from town. So basically what you're saying is that disabled people who can barely walk to save their lives will be left by the matatu, somewhere even before getting to town. So those are some of the challenges: access to public transport in the midst of corona, lack of access to information, in the midst of this corona, lack of access even to the internet. You know, everybody is talking about how their children are doing their education on Zoom. Now, the biggest challenge is that we are assuming that that is the norm for these children. Now, you look at those who have a disability, for example, and they do, their own education is very unique. What they do, what is cool for them is to learn how to do activities of daily living, like brushing their teeth, for example. But now you see, when the government say that our children should go back to school, they only focused on my child who is in the 844 system, but they forgot that there are children who don't do the KCPE and the KCSE, but they require to be in school. Mind you, for these children with a disability, school is not only for education, it's also a form of protection. Protection from danger, protection from predator, protection from neglect. The other big challenge in the midst of corona is hunger. You know, I don't know why the government and people in the other sectors are being very polite and saying, oh, I don't know, lack of livelihood, lack of what. Let us call it for what it is. It is hunger. People are sleeping hungry. In fact, people with disabilities who are not on social protection, whose mothers cannot work because they have to do a lot of care work, taking care of their children. People who lost their job because a lot of people with disabilities are in the informal sector. They don't have food. So then how can we say that people are being empowered in higher levels, like getting skills, if a person is hungry in the stomach? In fact, yesterday when I was invited on Spice FM, this is what I said, and I will repeat here. I said that our government is so out of touch with the needs of the disabled, so much so that when we tell them that some of our people have not eaten food or they slept hungry for 2 days, our government is so shocked, and then they'll ask us, so those people forgot to cook. So for me as a leader, I'm saying that our government should, it's upon the government to help us. This is because it's knowledge, it's common knowledge, and it's out there that people with disabilities are the most marginalized in Kenya, with all our needs, including food. People don't have food.
All right.
People are just don't have rent, and so on. Yeah.
Right, Wanja. If I could take you back to the theme for 2019, which was promoting the participation of persons with disabilities and their leadership taking action in the 2030 development agenda. Do you feel this was achieved? And if I could give you a two-tire, do you feel this has been considered in, say, the proposals in the BBI? Because we have sort of seen a change of tune in some of the very vocal leaders who speak for, if I could put it that way, speak for persons living with disabilities. Isaac Maura, we have Ole Sankok. But do you feel the needs of persons living with disabilities have been considered in this BBI, for instance? And also, if you could answer the question on whether we did achieve the theme for 2019.
Well, it's debatable really, because it, of course, it would be unfair for me to say if we achieved or not. But certainly we've seen a lot of proactivity and active citizenship on the people with disabilities. Speaking for myself, for instance, I'm leading the COVID response, and that's how I'm in Doldol in Laikipia County. I just left a meeting where we are doing COVID sensitization to very marginalized people with disabilities. So for us is that our leadership, if given a chance, we can be able to do our own leadership. I am mentored, I am mentoring. So probably for 2019, we can only say that we can. It's important to just say that it's a journey that has to be walked. Just answer the second bit of the question, we were talking about the BBI. The BBI, even as much as there was some sort of political goodwill between the two brothers, His Excellency Kenyatta and His Excellency Odinga, one of our major criticism from the beginning was that the BBI outcomes, the BBI report did not go wrong, it started wrong. If indeed there was good intention to show the activity of people with disabilities, we could have had some of our members as task force members. Because we realized that we only pushed when we saw the first report, and we were not happy because our positions in the parliament and in the Senate had been removed. So just to implore on our leadership that whenever you're having such programs and such projects, always ensure that people with disabilities are on the table so that they can bring their voices. Issues around accessibility. For example, issues are around, divisive elections. Some of us cannot run. So even when we are talking about divisive elections, we know that we are most affected in terms of post-election violence, for instance. So of course, there have been major interesting issues like the Youth Commission, something to be commended. But for us, we've always said that as young people with disabilities, we are citizens of this country. So if the fruits of the BBI are to be enjoyed, they must be enjoyed by all, not some. So if the Youth Commission, for example, calls for 6 commissioners who are youth, ours is just to say that one of us should be part of the 6. If the BBI talks about 2/3 women in parliament and in the county assemblies, we are saying that part of the 2/3 women or either gender, part of that should be us. Because now the challenge has always been where we come last as afterthoughts, very tokenistic kind of engagement. So we just applaud the president and His Excellency Raila, but just to say that this is not the end, this is just the beginning. In any case, Grace, just to talk about the BBI, in 2013, we had around 62 people with disabilities in the county assemblies. In 2017, we had only 41 members. So as the whole world is progressive in terms of representation, in Kenya, for example, the representation of people with disabilities is going down. So ours has always been that if there is goodwill, if there is intention, then we can be able to enjoy and feel like we are part of Kenya. I might add and say that it's not enough to tell us that you care about us. It's not enough to tell us that you have us in your hearts. It's not enough to just repeat the rhetoric, disability is not inability. Budget for us, show us where we appear in your budget line, show us where we appear in your technical committees, show us where you appear in your task forces. That way we shall really believe you when you tell us that you care about us, and we should be able to enjoy our citizenship rights.
Right, Wanja. Thank you so much for that. Unfortunately, that's all the time we had, but thank you so much for joining us. Wanja Maina there, a young woman with disabilities rights advocate, and she is also a youth leader, of course, speaking to us on